Welcome to week 5. I know you've been looking at Dad's face for the last few weeks, and now I'm going to take you through the steps for this week and the signals for the next few weeks, actually. So we're going to be looking at the AO this week, which is the oscillator, our 534. It reads the momentum of the market. It creates 3 different signals. It reads Elliott wave, and it also tells us about divergence, which is part of the Elliott wave, and some of our magic bullets, which you'll hear about in week 9. So we're going to cover this week. Make sure you spend a good bit of time looking at the AO. It is a very important part of trading. Sometimes I say you could really trade off the AO and never see a price chart. Just simply buy and sell at the market looking at the different momentum peaks. But that's too easy. We're going to go through, you're going to learn the signals, practice with the signals, place them in the market, and it'll be one more piece of the puzzle that we're starting to put together. Today our goal is going to be able to understand how to identify a saucer buy from the awesome oscillator. So let's go ahead and take a look. What the AO is. First thing we need to know is understand what it is and what it does. So the awesome oscillator measures the immediate momentum of the past 5 price bars compared to the momentum of the last 34 price bars. It is a 34-bar simple moving average of the bar's midpoints, which means the high-low divided by 2, and then we subtract that from a 5-bar simple moving average of the midpoints, high-low divided by 2. From there you can see it plotted in a histogram format. Now from the AO we've developed a few different signals. Besides being able to read your Elliott wave, you're also going to have the signals. First one you're going to look at will be the saucer. The next one we're going to look at will be the cross or the cross the line. And the third and final signal will be the twin peaks. Now remember, as I'm talking about the buy signals, when we go through the sells, it's going to be just the opposite of the buys. Now you're going to take a look at what the oscillator is, or what it looks like. You need to keep in mind that we've got these bars colored. When you notice a red bar, you know it's going to be lower than the previous bar. Okay, now I'm going to go along with the cursor and show you what I'm talking about. If you notice here below the 0 line, where we're looking at negative numbers, the bars are red when it's increasing or lower than the previous bar. Now you're going to see the bars turn green because they're higher than the immediate preceding bar. So when we're in an uptrend, you'll see it coming up green, or when we're above 0, and we're above 0 and it's lower, the next bar is lower, you're going to see red coming down all the way, then it will flip on the bottom. So just remember, your red bars mean it's lower than the previous bar, and your green bar means that it's higher than the previous bar. So let's go ahead now and try to see how we're going to put together a saucer buy. First thing we want to talk about are going to be the rules for the saucer buy. All your bars must be above 0. Your signal bar will be a green bar. And try to remember that you're never going to have a sell signal on a green bar. You'll only generate buy signals with green bars. It's going to take a minimum of 3 bars to create this signal. Now that's the minimum. You can have many more bars in between, and I'll show you what we're talking about later, but it takes a minimum of at least 3. You cannot have a buy and a sell at the same time. And after you create a signal, you must have a change of color or direction before creating another signal. The only exception there will be if you cross the line after you've had a signal, and we'll go into that in more detail as we go through. Okay, so here we are. We're going to take a look at how to create the saucer buy before we actually look at it on a chart. Here is represented the 0 line, which you saw previously in that chart where we talked about above and below being positive and negative. So anything above will be a positive, anything below will be a negative number. In this case, we've come up to point A, which is the first green bar, labeled at A. Now when you go through your notes, you will see the description of A, B, and C. Throughout this video, I'm simply going to describe it to you. So you will have this in written format. Don't panic. Just pay attention to what I'm talking about right now. So here's A. Is going to be what you're seeing is momentum has come up. Then B comes out, which is a red bar. Momentum has pulled back. It has pulled down. The next thing that happens is we have another green bar, another higher high. From this point to this point, we've created a saucer. Think about a saucer as a cup. Well, the saucer is the same color on both sides. The whole thing is one color, but what you have inside may be a different color, whether it's coffee, Coke, whatever you drink. So a lot of times I think about that. I'm looking for my saucer to be the edges, and then my different color, or the red bar, it has to be a red bar, will be in the middle. And there could also be 15 red bars here, not just one. This is a pristine example of a saucer buy. So at C, that is your signal bar. What you'll do is then go to the price bar, add 1 tick to the high, and that will be your signal bar. So let's go ahead and take a look at it on a chart. Okay, here we are. Now, I've got a few saucer buys on here, so let's just go through them. First thing, you see the momentum is increasing, increasing all the way up. Then you had a pullback. The market pulled back, momentum changed. And notice there's two bars here, not one. The next bar comes out and momentum is come back up again. You've seen it increasing. At that point, that is your trigger bar. You follow that bar up. Here's the price bar. Notice this is the open, this is the close, and the high. So one tick above the high is where our buy stop will be placed. If you notice the next day, the buy stop was filled. Now, again, we have created another saucer buy here. We had an upward peak in momentum. It pulled back, red bars, lower highs, and then it came up again. So this is the trigger bar again. Follow that bar up, one tick above the high, and you'll see that it was filled the next day. Now that's fairly simple, and the saucer buy really is fairly simple. You're going to notice as we go through that all these signals have different meanings. They're all important. Don't try to judge them or don't try to classify them right now. And the other thing to keep in mind is that we do not have the alligator on screen here. The reason I don't have it up is because I want you to concentrate on learning the signal right now. Once we've learned all the parts to the puzzle, we'll then put it together. So at this point, just concentrate on learning the signals. Okay, so here's an example of some other saucer buys. Remember I said there could be more than one bar in between? In this example, I have 4 reds in between. So momentum decreased 4 bars before it pulled back up. But where it pulled up here is your signal bar. You would follow that up to the corresponding price bar and add 1 tick to the high. In this occasion here, you notice from this point to this point's a saucer, from this point to this point's a saucer, and again here, and again here. So you can continue creating saucers between each one. There was a change. Well, you had to have a change to create it. Now notice down here what we have written. Remember, all buy signals will be triggered by a green bar. It's very important. There can be more than 3 bars in a saucer. You see that here. We've got 6 bars in this saucer. To create a new buy signal, all you need is a change in direction. You see that each time here. And it only takes 3 bars to create a saucer, which you really notice that here in the first one. So this is the saucer buy. It's not a big day, but it's a good bit of information. And now I suggest that you go back to your computoral, to your workbook, and you go through and you practice some. If you have any questions, of course, you can always let us know. This is the end of day 1 of week 5, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, well, you're back. It's week 5, day 2. The goal today is to understand the AO cross and the AO Twin Peaks buy. We're going to be covering 2 today because the AO cross is real simple. So let's go ahead and take a look. Rules for the AO cross the line buy. Always read from left to right. It only takes 2 bars to create this signal. Your first bar must be below the 0 line. Second bar must cross above the 0 line. So in other words, we're going from a positive number to a negative number. And you cannot have a buy and sell signal at the same time. That should make sense to you now. You can only have a buy signal on a green bar, and you can only create a sell signal with a red bar. And there's no way to have a red and a green bar at the same time. So you have one or the other, or none. Once your signal is created, you're going to go to the corresponding price bar and add 1 tick to the high for your buy stop. And you'll notice throughout the course that this will be the same. We try to stay together. We try not to make you have to learn too many things. So here we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at the AO cross buy. Okay, so here's the AO cross buy. We're going to look at it again here before we actually look at it on a chart. So here's your 0 line. Notice the red bar, because if it's going to be green, it has to be increasing. So it's increasing and getting closer to 0, closer, or actually it's a smaller negative number at this point where my cursor is. Next bar comes out. That is the signal bar. That triggers the signal. You have gone from below the 0 line, being a negative number, to crossing above the 0 line. You would follow this bar up to the corresponding price bar, add 1 tick to the high. That would be your buy stop. Now I've written up here, when the path of least resistance changes from down to up, this creates a buy signal. So remember, it's always going to be easier in the market to buy above 0 than it's going to be below 0. Now let's look at it on the chart. Real simple. This is probably the easiest signal we have. Notice that the momentum's increasing. It's coming up, approaching 0. At this point, it's still negative. Next bar crosses above. This is a positive number. This is your signal bar. Follow it up. Here's your price bar, one tick to the high, and it was filled the next day. So you see what I mean? This is a real easy signal. When we go through the sell side, you're going to see the sells are going to be just the opposite. So let's now go on to the Twin Peaks buy. The rules for the Twin Peaks buy: this is the only buy signal below the zero line. This is very important. You need to keep this in mind. Remember it. This will be the only buy signal below zero. Your first peak must be a larger negative number than the second peak. That's another big rule. You must remember that. Your trigger bar will be a green bar and a smaller negative number than either peak. If any bars cross the zero line within the Twin Peaks, the signal is invalid, and a saucer sell will be created before a Twin Peaks buy is created. So here it is. Now this is the zero line. Remember, we're below zero. You see the momentum is increasing to the downside. Then we have a change, pulls back. You have one green, two greens. Now remember, this is kind of a pristine example. There can be 50 green bars in between. We don't care. What matters here is that point A is a larger negative number than point B. Then the next bar comes out, green bar, that triggers our Twin Peaks buy signal. So let's go over it. You have a peak, change in momentum, another peak that is less than the first peak, and then the green bar comes out. That triggers our Twin Peaks buy signal. Now let's take a look at that on the chart. Okay, so here we are on the chart. Notice that the momentum is coming down, is increasing to the downside, larger negative numbers. Then we have a change in momentum. It starts to pull back up, closer to the zero line. Then at this point, it comes back down again. So at this point here, actually at this bar, we have a saucer sell signal. I know we haven't covered that yet, but some of you may have already figured that out. There's your saucer sell, but this day comes out, and it changes everything. Now we have a Twin Peaks buy signal. This peak is definitely taller or a larger negative number than this peak. And then this bar comes out, green bar again. So let's take a look at it here. You're going to follow that up, one tick above the high, and then it's going to be filled on the next bar. Okay, so we've covered day 2 of week 5. We talked about the AO cross the line, and we've talked about the AO Twin Peaks. Remember, the Twin Peaks will be your only buy signal below zero. And what you're really going to see in the market many times is that the AO Twin Peaks would be your first signal when a change of trend is happening. The next thing you're going to see is across the line, and then the AO saucers are going to be created. So keep that in mind when you're looking at them. It's kind of a sequence of change in trend. Sometimes you're going to create a few Twin Peaks before the change of trend actually happens. But by the time the AO crosses the line, you should be able to see a clear change. So have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, we're at week 5, day 3. Welcome back. We're about halfway through the week. We'll call this hump day. Today our goal is to be able to understand and to locate the AO saucer cells and the AO cross the line cells. So this really should be a review from you from the previous days this week. So let's go back through them and take a look at the saucer cells. First thing we're going to look at are going to be the rules. It's going to take a minimum of 3 bars to create this signal. All bars must be below the zero line. Your signal bar will be a red bar. You cannot have a buy and a sell at the same time. Remember, you can't have 2 different colored bars. It's going to be either red or green. After you create a signal, you must have a change in color or direction before creating another signal. If the current bar is green, you cannot have a sell signal. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to repeat. To create a sell saucer, all bars must be below the zero line. That's very important. In your saucer buy, all your bars will be above the zero line. So the saucer sell is just the opposite. Here we have labeled A, which is going to be your first bar out. Then B, momentum pulls back, gets closer to zero. It's a lower, it's a lower high. Then we have C come out. C is another red bar. So momentum has come back down. It's increasing again to the negative side, or the larger negative number. So we have momentum up, it pulls back, comes back down again. We've created a saucer. Remember, think about that cup I was talking about. The cup on the upside went this way, holding something. Now your saucer simply flipped upside down, so it's red on the sides and green in the middle. That may help you to remember this until it becomes second nature. And again, I mentioned earlier that on your notes, you're going to have a printout of what exactly A, B, and C stand for. Now, C must be lower than A. That's going to be the only, or must be lower than B, excuse me. That's the only rule here. Since you've seen the Twin Peaks by, you understand why. C is only related to B here. When we're looking at a Twin Peaks, and we look at what A and C are compared to each other. In saucer, it does not matter. As long as B is lower than C, you're fine. You've created a signal. Okay, here we are on a chart. Now we're going to take a look at, there's your zero line, so you know that momentum is increasing to the downside. You see the red bars. Pulls back here, just one bar, but that's all it takes. Next bar comes out, momentum is increasing again to the downside. So we're going to follow that bar up. One tick below the low is going to be where our sell signal is, or a sell stop, and it gets filled the next day. Now, if you're wondering what that square is, that's showing us identifying an AO saucer cell. CQG, which is one of the software that we use, identifies these by the mark, so don't let it fool you. That's what it is. It's just simply telling you there's a sell signal. Now here, again, we have a downward momentum, and then we have a change in momentum. At this point, notice here we have 2 bars. Doesn't make a difference. There could be 15 bars as long as the sequence is correct. Red, green, and this is appearing black, but they would be green, they're lower, and this is red. You follow that, one tick below the low, that's going to be our sell stop. Now this chart's been cut off, but the next day it was filled. And again, remember, you're not looking at the alligator because we're trying to learn all the pieces of the puzzle. We're going to put everything together after you've learned how to find your signals. So let's go ahead and take a look at the rules for the AO cross the line cell. It only takes 2 bars to create. Your first bar must be above the zero line. Your second bar must cross below the zero line from a positive to a negative number. So all we're doing here is simply doing the opposite that we did for the AO cross the line buys. You can only create a sell signal below the line, and you cannot have a buy and a sell signal at the same time. If your current bar is green, you cannot have a sell and vice versa. So I've just said the same thing in 2 different ways. I want to make sure you get that. Okay, here I've created across the line, and it's very simple. You notice that here's our zero line of 1 green bar, so we know the next bar is red because it's lower than the previous bar. Then we cross below. B crosses, it's a negative number. That's it. That has created a signal. So we now go to the chart. Notice how momentum was up, started coming down. At this point, that crossed the zero line. It now became a negative number. That is our signal. 1 tick below the low is where our sell stop will be. Now notice the next day, what happens? We have a higher low, don't we? And momentum is still increasing to the downside. So what we have here is what we call a blue light special. The market has gone on sale and given us a better price. And I'm going to explain it a little better. Here's our original sell signal. Notice here it's where it's generated. It should be 1 tick below the low. The next day, the market, the low, is way above even the previous day's high. But it's a higher low. Momentum is still increasing to the downside. So it simply means we're getting a better price on this sell signal. So we moved our sell stop 1 tick below the low of this bar. Then, look what happens the next day. We were filled. So that is what you call a blue light special. We're going to see that a lot. You're going to see it with the AO and the AC. So make sure you pay attention, and if we need to cover that again, you can either call us, look over what you've got. There'll be some sections in your computorial on it. You should have quite a bit of information about that. So this is going to be the end of day 3. We've covered a good bit of information today, but you should relax tonight, have a good evening, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Okay, welcome back. Week 5, and it's day 4. The goal today is to understand and be able to immediately locate the Twin Peaks cell signal, and then we're going to go through and review all the AO cell signals that you've learned this week. So let's go, and here we go. It's actually going to be a review for you. Again, this is just the opposite of what the Twin Peak AO buy cell signal was. Bi cell, that didn't make a lot of sense. The AO bi signal. Okay, this is the only cell signal above the 0 line. The first peak must be a larger positive number than the second peak. Your trigger bar will be a red bar and a smaller positive number than either peak. If any bars cross 0, the signal will become invalid. And the saucer bi will be created before a twin peak cell. That's a key. You may want to remember that. You're always going to create a saucer bi before a twin peak cell. Here it is created. Here's our 0 line, or this represents our 0 line. A is going to be peak number 1. Notice it's the tallest peak in this sequence. Then we have a change in momentum. Momentum pulls down here. B comes out. At this point, we've created a saucer bi, haven't we? The next bar comes out, though, and it's red. So we're going to cancel our saucer bi, and we now have a twin peak cell. Now, this is only if it's in accordance to the gator. If you're going against the gator and the overall trends, you won't take it. I just want to remind you of that. But the importance here is that A is a higher positive number than B, and then C comes out and is a red bar. A lot of times where you're going to see these twin peak signals are going to be in a divergence. So if you've got divergence, you know your first peak has to be taller than your second peak, and you have to have a change in momentum. So you may see this a lot towards the end of a trend, and you may want to pay attention. We may not actually take the signal, but it's going to be a pre-warning to what's coming. So here it is on the chart. You can see increase in momentum. Then we have a decrease in momentum. This is our first peak. Momentum decreases. Notice how many bars are in here. Doesn't matter. Second peak. At that point, we had a bi signal. You notice it was square right here, indicated we had a bi signal. Next day came out a change in momentum, which canceled the bi, and now triggers our twin peak cell. So one tick below the low of that bar is going to be our twin peak cell stop. And notice it was filled the next day. So the twin peak is definitely one of the most difficult signals, but once you get an understanding of it, it should not be a problem. It's really a nice precursor or a warning of what's happening, because any time that the end of a trend is approaching, you're going to have your magic bullets. Now, you don't know about magic bullets yet. You're going to learn them later in the course, but once you do, you're going to understand or have a better understanding of what the twin peak represents. So remember, we're not always going to take the signal. We always look at the gator before we decide and make sure we've had a fractal as our first entry. But notice that it's going to be the first thing you see usually before a change of trend. Then you'll see the cross the line. Then you'll see the saucers created. Okay, so here we are. We're going to take a look at the review of all the signals. Remember, these are going to be the pristine signals. So we're just looking at the saucer bi from this point to this point. Here's our cross the line bi. We went from a negative number to a positive number. In the twin peaks, try to remember that if a twin peaks bi, your trigger bar is going to be a green bar. So that means both of your peaks will be red. The key here is that this peak is a larger negative number than this peak. And then, of course, the next bar comes out as a bi signal. Now, if we come down here to the saucer cell, it's just the opposite of the saucer bi. We have an increase in momentum, a decrease in momentum, another increase in momentum. That creates our saucer cell. The next one, we went from a positive number to a negative number. That created our across the line cell. Now, finally, we have the twin peak cell. Above 0, your first peak is a green bar. We have a decrease in momentum. Second peak is another green bar, but lower than the first. And then, of course, we have the red bar that comes out and triggers our twin peak cell signal. So now we have covered all the different signals that have been created by the AO. What you have left is going to be some reviews and some practice pages. So I'm going to go through one practice page, and the rest you'll need to go through on your own in your workbook, your manual, and then, of course, you need to look through your computoral. So we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, here we are at week 5, day 5. Today's not going to be a lot of information. It's really just a review, so I want to go over and make sure that you understand what the signals were. You're going to have some practice pages that you're going to be able to go through and locate. Okay, here's the AO practice page. Now, this is what you're going to go through to try to identify the signals that you've learned this week. Now, shouldn't be too hard, but you may have a problem with some of the twin peak signals. So let's go ahead and look at the page with the answers on it. I'd like for you at home, though, to go through and try to fill this out before you look at the answers and see how well you have comprehended the material this week. Okay, here we go. The AO practice page, this is the answers. Now notice here, we've created a saucer, and what I have done on the top, it's been a T for Twin Peak, an S for a saucer, a C for a cross. It will be green if it's a Twin Peak buy. It'll be red if it's a Twin Peak sell. So it's color coordinated, and then it's also got the first initial of the signal that it has created. So we go through here, we've created saucer cells, another saucer cell, another saucer cell. Then we notice we have a peak here, but before that peak we create a saucer cell. Then we've created a Twin Peaks buy. So notice as you go through, it's created a lot of signals, but we're only going to take the signals that will be on the right side of the gator. We will never trade against the overall trend in the market. Okay, the end of week 5, you should now have a good understanding of the AO, what the mom is, the saucer, the Twin Peaks, the cross the line, how we create these signals, and how we use them. Also, we're going to cover the 534 later as your oscillator. It's very important that you realize that the oscillator has more than just one function. We spend a little bit of time looking at each different part in this course, and then at the end we're going to put them all together for you. So now would be a good time for you to go through, review your computoral, look over your slides, look over the workbook video notes that you have that you can check everything we've talked about this week. You've also need to have your date with your IT this weekend. You need to be doing your morning pages, and hopefully you're having a good time while you're taking this course. If you have any questions, let us know. Please don't go until next week until you really have a good understanding of the awesome oscillator.
I want to tell you about a power tool for learning to trade better. We spent 18 months working on this power tool, and we call it Investor's Dream. And with the help of programmers from Australia, this country, and Germany, we put together our way of looking at the market and describing the market into an easy-to-use download demonstration. And it works quite well because you can go through it bar by bar. It shows all of the indicators, and then all you have to do is make an executive decision. And you can even program part of that. We call it, again, the Investor's Dream. One trader who's been here who is now very successful, and he attributes it to learning from this and using this. He calls it Idiot's Delight. We'd rather call it Investor's Dream. So let's go to the video. Let's go to the monitor now, and let me show you Investor's Dream. The way to get Investor's Dream, the easiest way to get it is just to go to our website, which is www.profitunity.com, and you can download a fully functioning free version of that. And let's look at that and how it is displayed. What we're going to bring up, this is IBM, and this is Investor's Dream. Now, you'll notice a number of things. Up at the top here, you have the bar chart, and you have the red and green and the blue and the squats all marked. Here you have the volume, and just so that you can see it a little easier, what we're going to do is minimize the volume. We're going to take that out. Here you have the awesome oscillator. Below that you have the AC/DC, the accelerator and decelerator. This particular chart here is what we call the gator chart, and the upper from 0 up measures the distance between the alligator's jaw and his teeth, and below 0 measures the distance between the teeth and the lips. So, and this is projected out 8 bars into the future. So in this particular chart, for example, which is IBM stock, you can see that the alligator is indeed closing. The EO down here, the EO chart, is our Elliott wave counter. Now this we need to be very specific about this. This counts the number, the Elliott wave on the chart itself, the number of bars. You do not have to have 100 to 140 bars. This takes that into account. And we've simplified it. We've taken the numbers off of it. And anytime the line is green here, you're in an impulsive wave. And anytime it's in the blue, you're in a reactive wave. So on this particular day here, since this is a day chart, it went from an impulsive wave to a reactive wave. Coming over here in the lower right-hand corner, you can have more bars, you can thicken the bars, you can do whatever. Let's put a few more bars here so that we can see it a little bit better. And let's walk through here. You can walk through 1 bar at a time if you wish to, and you notice that everything changes with each bars. Let's go through here very simply and look at what these are. On the right side, to the right of the chart, you have all of the signals. This is a fractal signal. F plus means it's a fractal. It's green, and that means that it is a bi. Below that is a balance line. BL means balance line, and plus means bi. But you notice that that's grayed out. And the reason that's grayed out is because it's not valid. It is a signal, but it is not above the alligator's mouth. Neither is this AC. Here we have the momentum, which is taken off of the AC chart. The first arrow is down, and that means that we're below zero, and the second arrow is up, which means that this particular bar is higher accelerating than the previous one. We have two cells down here. We have a fractal cell, which is this fractal right there, and then we have a balance line cell, and you notice that that is not grayed out because it's a valid cell. It's a valid cell because the fractal below the alligator's teeth has already been hit, so we would take any and all cells. So let's minimize this chart here to get that out of the way, and let's also look at what you can do, the variables you can do. As far as chart preferences, you can look at the chart. You can do basically most anything. You can change the background. You can change the date. You can change the grid. You can change the x-axis. You can go to thicker lines. You can set anything you'd like as a default and have fun trading that. We can then go to indicator properties, and on the indicator properties you have total freedom to do whatever you want. You can color any bars, anything you would like to color. You can go to the volume. You can make that any way you'd like. You can determine how you want to score the hits. So the way it's set up now, if you have a green that's hit that puts you long, it puts a green arrow exactly where it's hit. If you're short, it puts the red arrow. And you notice that you have magenta and blue. These are stops that the software will put in. You can change that any way you would like. You can show it so it shows your hits or doesn't show the ones that are taken. With the calls, you can change these colors any way you would like. In the general, what you can do is you can set it up. If you just want the fractals to show, then you can take everything else off. If you want everything to show, you can do that. If you just want to use the red line as a stop, all you have to do is take the check marks off. Or if you want to use all 4 executive stops, you can set that as default. On the price bars, you can color those any way you'd like. You can decide how you want to signify the fractals, how the Elliott wave, the AO, the AC. You can do most anything you wish with this chart. We're not going to spend a great deal of time on the chart, and let's take this one off temporarily here so that we can see it a little bit better. Now we're going. What I suggest you do when you download it is you go to the guided tour, and the guided tour will take you through the introduction, placing trades, some philosophy of ours about trading, how to load data files, how to chart utilities, how to use the chart utilities, customizing the display. This explains in brief detail our indicators and then a final word. So if you go through that guided tour, it will teach you exactly how to use the software. Again, you can go through this software one bar at a time, and let's just take a little bit of time in doing that. And watch over on the right side, watch how things change here. So now we'll go to the very next day, and on the next day, you notice that all the signals change. We still have a fractal buy, we have a balance line and a fractal sell, and notice that the momentum has changed. Let's go back one previous day. The momentum was down on this particular day. The next day it goes up, and the software will signify to pay attention to this, because now we have an up arrow, and if we were short with any big positions, that would be a signal to look at that quite closely. Let's take a few more days trial here. Now we're still about the same, no real change here. Now we have a closer fractal, because this fractal has now been formed, which is closer than the far out fractal we had. And now we have been hit on the short side, so we are short over here, from this bar, two instances on this bar, and the fractal was hit on this bar, so that that signifies we're now short the fractal. We also have an AC cell that's generated by this AC change in direction down here, and that AC cell was hit. So on this particular bar, we're now short. In the last 2 bars, we're short from 3 different places, and we still have an AC that is about to get hit. The bar comes back. The bar is now hit with a balance line. We have an AC, a balance line, and a fractal cells in the market. These have not been hit, but we're short 4. This is just a preview, and again, this is a tool for you to become acquainted with how we trade. It's very flexible. You can go through and trade only squats, trade only fractals, trade only AC or only balance line. You can get out only on the red line or only on the green line, on a stop in the opposite direction, or in 5 consecutive red or green bars. For example, now we have 5 consecutive red bars, so if we were using the 5 consecutive red bars, our stop would be just above that. So this is just an added piece of equipment that we put together to test our own trading and to help you out in learning to trade better. Hope you enjoy it. We'd like some feedback on it. If you need any help using this, installing it, just simply call, email, or fax our office. Enjoy, have fun, learn to trade well.